So the session today, we're going to set a little context of what OMS is, what Omnichannel is. I really want to center this session around two particular use cases with a couple of client examples. So that's where we're going to spend the bulk of the time. I think they're very diverse examples, but they're very relevant and very common in what we think of as Omnichannel. And we're going to tell that. I'm going to tell a little bit of that, but then we're going to bring up our partners Redbox to help us tell one of those stories. And then hopefully leave plenty of time for your questions. So let's dive right in. So OMS is kind of I could rattle off 50, 60 feature functions and you guys would all leave pretty quickly. But let's talk about what is driving the investment in order management when it think about consumer expectations and merchant upside. So consumer expectations, things like consumers are expecting a much more robust experience across all channels. So they're expecting to know when the delivery of orders are going to happen, right? 91% are expecting estimated time of arrival of orders. They want to be able to view local store inventory online. None of this, no longer, and you're going to hear this common theme throughout, no longer can we assume that we're running two siloed businesses, online and offline, right? Consumers won't expect that. They expect a single view across all channels. They want to be able to return products in store, right? They want to be able to ship products to a local store so they can go deliver it. And they want to do buy online, pick up in store, click and collect. So we know this, right? Consumers are driving these expectations. If they don't go to our merchants, they're going to our competitors because they expect what we call seamless omni-channel experiences. So that's great from a consumer expectation, but we could take it a step further. These programs are also very meaningful in ways they drive revenue. So if you do things like ship from store, and we're going to talk about this in a use case later, but if you do things like ship from store, when you start tapping into your physical stores and create them and turn them into mini distribution centers, you can see 20 to 30 and even upwards of that in incremental online business. You've turned an out-of-stock situation online to a sale because you're tapping into that store inventory. And that is a very big story we're going to tell later with a merchant case study from Devlin. So then people say, okay, well, I do click and collect and I'm just cannibalizing my e-commerce sales by driving store traffic. Have you ever heard that story? Some people say click and collect could just be a cannibalization situation. Well, actually, when you're driving store, there's stats out there that say when I drive that traffic to the store, people attach, they buy more. So there's a huge value, and Forrester has said 30 to 40% of people, when you enable them to do click and collect, they will come into the store and they will attach and they will sell, they will buy more. So it's not just a consumer convenience, it's a revenue driving scenario. Then this can be transformative if done correctly, is endless aisle. So Forrester stats say you could see 1 to 10% incremental chain sales if you do endless aisle or save the sale program. So that's taking that traffic that is coming to your store, probably had intent to buy something, can't seem to find the right product, whether it's a size, a color, but they want something, they really have intent to buy, but they can't find it in that store. If you can do endless aisle, save that sale by tapping into inventory across the network, you can turn those into sales that drive 1 to 10% chain sales. This isn't e-commerce sales, this is chain overall sales if you do endless aisle properly. And this is yet another example that we saw that I'll mention in Devlin in a couple of minutes. And then I think we all know that the higher lifetime value of merchants or consumers, when they engage with us and enjoy their experiences across all channels, they're much more loyal and much more sticky. So last stat here I'll throw you, and this is from the US, but this struck me from peak of 2015 to peak of last year. Just look at the explosive growth of merchants deploying programs like buy online, pick up in store, click and collect, returns, ship from store, ship to store. I mean, these are massive. I think it's, you average it out, it's over 150% year-over-year growth to deploying these programs. We're really starting to see, we've talked about these a lot, but you're starting to see these programs really take hold in a very, very aggressive way. So these are drivers of order management. What's a topic on Omnichannel without talking about this disruptive news that what was about a couple days ago, a week ago? Amazon and Whole Foods. Now, how many people think Amazon bought Whole Foods because they want to get into the grocery business? Nobody raised their hands. I think it's much bigger than that, right? They don't necessarily are just going after the grocery business, but I read an article that said, why is Amazon, and I think we're all trying to figure out why they bought them. I think Amazon's going to figure out why they bought them, and they're going to figure it out in many ways. But, the physical world and the digital world are morphing and changing, and the plans of those that started digital are going physical and vice versa. I mean, you could imagine that you're going to go into a Whole Foods and you're going to go in and pick up your Prime orders at a Whole Foods store at some point. I could imagine that, right? Whole Foods is experimenting with home delivery. All grocers are experimenting with home delivery. Amazon can help them get there, right? So this is omni-channel. This is disruptive. We don't know what the new world. Would we have expected this a year or two ago? No, but the point is, we also said 3 years ago the physical stores are dead, right? We're seeing stores closed, but the point is they're not dead, but they're gonna be changed. They're gonna be morphed. They're gonna be a strategic asset if they're used properly. So I think this is gonna be interesting. Everybody's gonna watch it, but they're gonna leverage that physical footprint, and you're gonna start seeing Amazon create new experiences. So what we're going to talk about today is this is the highest level view of what order management is and what it enables, right? So at its core, this red box here, it's all about orders and inventory. It really starts with inventory. Us kind of order management people say order management's not named properly. It's really about inventory. It starts with inventory. It starts with having a granular view of inventory across your chain, knowing where your products are. It starts with that. If you don't have a good granular view of inventory across any sources, any locations, you can't really start thinking about omnichannel. It starts with that as a foundation. With that, you can expose that inventory to any channel and you can capture those orders. Then once you capture those orders, then there's this thing called business logic. It's let's make sure we route those orders to the best possible fulfillment location. If you follow omnichannel, you can start, when folks did this initially and started to do things like ship from store and things like that, their costs went up. So it's really about the business logic and business intelligence you could apply to those orders and inventory to make sure you're capturing that sale, but then optimizing the fulfillment, routing that order to the best store that gets it to the consumer fastest, gets it to them the most economically way possible. And in my eyes, from running Magento's order management product, this is when, the next buzzword in the industry now is machine learning and artificial intelligence. And we think of that maybe as the consumer experience. I think you're gonna, and our plans and strategy are to really apply those concepts to this back office, so that we're machine learning and we're optimizing, we're simulating, we're testing how we source and fulfill orders. Because I think, as you see with Amazon buying Whole Foods, optimizing the supply chain is really where the next frontier is. And when you can apply some great, powerful learnings and machine learning to optimize the supply chain, you really have an opportunity to not only drive that consumer expectations, consumer experience, but drive costs out of your business. So that's kind of at the highest level. Orders, inventory with business logic wrapped to it. Then it enables these two other buzzwords, fulfill anywhere and engage everywhere. So fulfill anywhere, whether that be your physical stores, which we'll talk about, drop shippers, or multi-diverse, multi-geo warehouses. Wherever you've got inventory, if you've got inventory dispersed across those chains, it's about tapping into those locations so that you can fulfill the order effectively. And then but that's kind of your traditional use case. That's omnichannel from a omnichannel fulfillment perspective. But we're also talking about omnichannel from an engagement perspective. Let's say you've got multi-geo sites where you engage in the consumer, or multi-brand sites. You are connecting to your consumer across all those touch points. Then it comes down to the complexity of having a single source of truth of inventory and orders that can serve all those channels. So it's not, most of the use cases around fulfillment, but there's also use cases around how you engage with consumers and omni-channel engagement. Then this can extend to mobile, as we talk about omni-channel being mobile, Internet of Things, wherever that order or wherever that engagement may happen, across brands, across devices, across geos, you've got to be there with one system of truth of inventories and orders to capture that order and then source it most effectively, fulfill it. So those are the two cases we're going to dive into. Devlin, which I'll talk a little bit right now, from a fulfill anywhere scenario. They have 1,200 stores. And Universal Music Group, no stores, but 1,200 brands, 1,200 artists. So they map to those use cases, and we're going to talk a lot of detail why they invested in order management and what it brings to them across those use cases. So before I do that, that was a super high level understanding of the product. I'm going to do a couple of slides on overview of our product and how it maps, just so you have context. So this is kind of how we represent the product in 5 boxes or less. And it's kind of how, if you know order management, it's not anything that's going to overly surprise you. It's at its core. Let's start with global inventory, top right. So it all starts with there. Be able to track inventory across, as we say, some people say nodes, multi-node inventory. Knowing where your inventory is across any node, having view of inventory, not only what you have, but what inventory may be in transit, and then sourcing across that inventory. And then distributed order management, if you've heard the word DOM, is really, it's the order flow or the order state engine to track that order across the many steps of its process, right? Then those are kind of at its core. Then you've got the store fulfillment piece, which is what I described as, the ship from store, ship to store, and then also how you enable that associate, right? You've now made those stores into physical mini distribution centers, but have you put the tools in the associate's hands to be able to go fulfill that effort? It's almost like what we're putting in the hands of an associate is almost like a mini warehouse management solution that empowers that associate to be able to pick, pack, and ship the tool. And then lastly, customer service. When customer service calls in, what do they typically want to do stuff to an order. They want to, where is my order? I want to change my order. It's very order-centric tasks. So that's where order management comes in and exposes those functions so the customer service can deliver those kinds of experience, have visibility into orders, modify orders, appease orders. And then the last piece is, because we talked about the store, the world of omnichannel is disrupting the physical store, even the traditional point of sale space. The point of sale was traditionally a siloed piece of software or a platform, and now you're starting to see omnichannel. You're seeing the digital world encroaching into the physical store. You're seeing order management solutions encroaching into the physical store. So we have an in-store module that enables all of those things, that are integrated with not only your order management solution, integrated with your Magento Commerce digital solution to enable things like clienteling, a robust endless aisle solution, and be in that mobile pick, pack, and ship solution, as well as solving basic mobile point of sale capabilities. So that's how we think about our product, and this is what the product that you're going to see in these use cases have been deployed. As a way of, before I get into that use case, a couple more slides here. Where are we at today? For those that are new to this product, we've only brought this product, I guess it was brought this product under the Magento umbrella about 18 months ago, 2 years ago. And this is where we stand today. And there's some great progress here that we want to highlight in the use case, but we've turned over 1,800 stores into mini distribution centers across 20 brands, 34 geographies. Many of you, hopefully, in this audience are our partners. We've trained over 55 SI partners on the product, so they're out, know how to implement, integrate, and that's going to be our path to success is through our ecosystem. We're really working hard to decrease the deployment time and costs. I'll talk a little bit about that, how it relates to the Devlin use case. Right now we're tracking it. Almost 3/4 of the deployment is done by our system integrator partners. We don't want to be involved in that work. We want to pass that on to our partners who know our merchants and know how to bring these solutions to life for our merchants. And average deployment time, it's a meaningful deployment. And now we're seeing, our partners are bringing this business to us, and they're seeing the value in the order management solution. And not the 2 solutions that we're going to talk about today, but a third launched a couple of weeks ago, and from time of signing to time of deploy was 7 weeks. Now, for any of those that know order management, that is a very, very rapid time to market, and we're very proud of that. We'll talk a little bit about how that was important to Devlin as well. So, here are some recent wins, and you can see what we really wanted to map to the point of really winning through our partners. You can see in most cases the logo of our system integrator partners are here who have been integral and a very important piece of bringing these solutions to life. So let's now dive into a couple of case studies here. So I am going to start with Devlin. So Devlin, long-standing family-owned optical retailer in Mexico, 1,200 stores. I'm going to play a video, but you can see they're over 100 years old, started as a family optician and has grown into a 1,200 store chain of eyeglasses, eyewear. Traditional physical retailer, innovating, evolving to go digital. So what were their two big problems that they faced? And why did they come to Magento, and why did they come to Magento Order Management? And this is pretty common, two pain points. Number one, the store inventory. The inventory that they had in their 1,200 stores was 10 times more than they had in their e-commerce dedicated warehouse. I think it was like 7,000 SKUs versus 70,000 SKUs. So their physical stores had 10 times the inventory than what they had allocated to their digital channel. So you can imagine their e-commerce sales were not very strong because they were only selling 10% of what they had across their chain. So that was a challenge that he wanted to fix. Number two, so you had 70,000 SKUs across those 1,200 stores, but they were very shallow. 1,200 stores, they may have had one or two units in any individual store, and they had eyeglasses in different colors, a diverse set of merchandise, but they only were very shallow in any individual store. So somebody came in and loved the frames, you only had it in red, but they wanted it in blue. So that 70,000 inventory was dispersed and very thin across 1,200 stores. So that's a problem. That's in hindering their ability to sell online, and it's hindering their ability to capture sales in the physical world as well, right? So it's two problems. And I would say these are fairly common problems that we see with an omni-channel, multi-channel retailer, is the diverse set of SKUs and inventory across online and offline, and then the fact that every store can't carry every SKU, and how do you capture that sale? So those were two very common pain points. But I'm going to let Andrew, who's the Director of Innovation at Devlin, kind of explain the detail a little bit more about their brand, and then we'll come back to and he's also going to allude to some results. So I'm going to play a quick video here.
My grandfather and my grandmother, they were very innovative. Going to very small towns that never had been visited by opticians. And they were letting the people there in the ranch know, Dr. Devlin is going, be ready, we're gonna be in the motel. They would do that exam inside of the room. And in the bathroom, there would be my grandmother and my fathers and my uncles doing the lens, the edging of the lens to be able to fit those glasses on the customers. We're currently operating in 4 countries, the US, Mexico, Guatemala, and El Salvador. 5,000 employees, 1,200 stores. Our retail is very special. Most stores will have, of the broad majority of their SKUs, only one piece. The full catalog of SKUs that we have is 25,000 SKUs. Our customer sees very few when they go to our stores. Approximately every store has about 580 SKUs, and we'll only have an inventory there about 20% of that. So if we're able to offer them the whole gamut of products online, it will make it a lot more convincing for them.
When we started with this online effort, we truly did not know what we were doing. Our customers had a different experience, a different message when they accessed us online versus when they went into one of our stores.
And that's why we've landed in Magento. That's when everything started to click. All the rest almost always offered, everything's baked in. Difference that Magento bring was its flexibility. We knew we needed to upgrade to Magento 2 for many reasons. One was our integration with MCOM, and two, the ease of use during the whole process. The checkout that Magento designed was a lot easier, and we really saw an uptick in our conversions. 271% increase in mobile. We had an uptick also in sessions. The duration grew by 23%. In MCOM, we're using ship from store ship to store, and we are working in launching pre-order. That is truly more omnichannel than what our competition offers. It's been phenomenal growth.
Technology is the pillar of how we're going to grow these next coming years. We're going to be able to access our customers in the most convenient way possible for them.
E-commerce, at least when you're a brick and mortar company, you do it to retain your customers, because if they already trust you, when you have an e-commerce that really works, they'll stay loyal to you because they know you know them.
Cool. So I know he threw a lot of numbers at you. That's why I kind of tried to preface it. But he hit the big challenges. Was I've got shallow inventory across all these stores, and I'm not exposing all of that inventory to my e-commerce or digital channel, right? So when he did that, so he alluded to this. This video. So he was a Magento 1 customer. He upgraded to M2 and deployed Magento Order Management at the same time, and he did it with his in-house staff. So he did that and launched all at the same time, and then immediately started to see some almost unbelievable results. But when we talk about the opportunity, you could map this to say these are believable. When you think about 10 times the amount of inventory he can expose in his physical stores are now exposed to the digital channel, he's seeing 165% conversion increase on his digital channel. Now, he did allude to it. We don't have the metrics right now to really attribute this effectively, but he made improvements in his consumer experience. He made improvements in checkout, but I would certainly feel comfortable to say a large portion of that percentage is related to the fact that now, instead of selling 7,000 SKUs, he's now selling 70,000 SKUs. And that's kind of the massive growth you can have when you expose that physical store inventory to the digital channel. Then, Endless Aisle. Endless Aisle is a big part of his business, was trying to be a big part of his business. Because he's only carrying 1 or 2 SKUs in any store, it's an interesting story in that all of his physical stores, all of the associates were using WhatsApp to message other stores to find other frames. Now that's a very, that's a great cultural thing to think all those associates really want to capture that sale, and will send a message to other stores to say, hey, do you have these frames in red? I got a customer here. But obviously that's great effort, that's great hustle, that's tenacity, but it's not very efficient. What happens when somebody says, yeah, they've got it? How do you manage that? You got to go find it. You got to see then you got to message somebody at. So they tried really hard to do omnichannel. They tried very hard to do Endless Aisle, but in the end they were brute forcing it with a messaging app. Now, they were trying, but they only had moderate success with that, as you could imagine. But now with deploying order management, you have a kind of an automated direct associate tool that says, okay, if you wanted those red frames, I don't have them here, but I have them in another store. I see that, I can have them shipped to you. You can go pick them up. That's a great experience, and that's a seamless, simple, that consumer loves that experience. The associate captures that sale, and everybody's happy in the end. And that's growing their Endless Aisle sales, which was that difficult WhatsApp situation, to now 200% growth in doing Endless Aisle sales. So that has also meaningful impact to their business. So, those are big numbers. So he knew this, right? He knew I needed to do this. Like a lot of merchants say, I need to solve this omni-channel puzzle. So why did he come to Magento? So he's thinking to himself, or why do you buy order management? I want to do this. Where do I go? What do I do? Everybody's telling me I could solve this a different way. So he looked at his ERP vendor, SAP, and they came to him and said, we could do a custom solution for you. So he considered that, not very aggressively. He didn't want to go down a path of customizing his ERP. And ERPs are, not necessarily meant to do these kinds of things. But that was his one choice. Then he was talking to other vendors, larger OMS vendors, that would not get him live for many, many months. This from signing to live was 6-7 months, I believe. And that's from signing and scoping to going live. he tells a story that he had friends who were deploying more enterprise solutions, and they kind of signed up with a competitor, and while he's live learning, because he wasn't going to get it right the first time, he was waiting for his friends to still in the deployment phase. So Andrew was very much about deploy and learn. So he wanted to get to market faster and start experiencing these results. So it was about time to market and flexibility. He alluded that to the video. And then the last thing, the reason why he wanted to go live, and we can all sit up here and say this is about technology, but this isn't just about technology. He also had to go through a massive transformation in his business, in his organizational structure, in how they ran the business. So now he incensed those associates that says if you are involved in an omni-channel sale and you meet a certain level SLA, you go pick or pack or ship that or touch that fulfillment order in any way, and you deliver on that SLA within those times, you are compensated or achieve quota for that. So he broke down the silos of the organizational channel conflict within Devlin to say, well, that's an e-commerce sale, or that's a physical, that's my store sale, and people having that age-old fight of who gets credit for the sale. He had to work through his organizational structure and put things in place so that everybody felt as part of the team to go make that omni-channel thing happen. And that's certainly well out of the technical side of this solution, but it was very critical to his success. And it's also why he wanted to get live, start working on it so that he could work through the organizational things and keep growing these numbers. So that's Devlin. Like we said, that's the fulfill anywhere side of the story. Now I'm going to bring up Mark Hatch, director of our product delivery, who hopefully many of you may know, our partners. Mark is very instrumental in taking our solution and working with our partners to build and deploy these solutions on our behalf. So Mark's going to talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to talk about another use case. So let's bring up Mark.
So I'm just going to give you a quick update on where we are on partner enablement before we get Redbox up on stage to talk to. So those of you that know the history of MCOM will know that in the old days we used to do all the delivery in-house. So our ability to deliver a large number of clients was quite limited. So down at the bottom here we have all the effort for delivery on the Magento side, and on the line you can see how much was on the partner side. So when we became formally part of the Magento world, definitely the best thing about that was access to the Magento community. So we wanted to enable the partners to help us scale. Right now, we're delivering as many clients simultaneously right now than we delivered in the entire pre-Magento life of the product. So this has really enabled us to scale. So just to take you through this graph a bit, the orange bar here is the technical effort and deployment, and then we've got the blue for project management and the gray for consultancy. So we used to be like 1,200 hours to get a basic launch live. Now we've gone through a period of transition where we've been able to push the effort over to the partners, train them up, give them the tools necessary to do this delivery work. So we're down to just a tiny sliver of our technical effort to get an instance of the product live. And definitely our aim is to get that fully over to the partner side so you can deploy the platform from a web interface, no need for any input for us on the delivery. So we've done that mainly through two things. One is we've really cut down the effort it takes us to get the instance of the platform live, and we've really handed over the integration efforts. So if you're connecting up to a warehouse, your partner can now do that. So here we add in this cream color for technical support. So we're providing technical support to the partners. And that'll start off maybe 15% of the effort. But as the partner becomes enabled, they do start to do their more launches, they'll be able to do that fully autonomously now. Project management, we're already at the point now where there's no project manager on the Magento side. Your project manager on the partner side can run that project. And into the future, we just want to now start concentrating on bringing that effort down. So by providing better tools, improving the developer experience, better training, better documentation, we want to really bring that effort down. So this is the hours for a fairly basic launch. So if you're a client thinking about who you want to select for your partner, if you're doing a fairly standard launch, you can select your partner based on your marketing needs, other things, because the complexity in delivering MCOM for the majority of launches, maybe 80% of them, is quite simple. So you can just select your partner based on your front-end needs, your marketing needs, whatever cultural needs you have, and that partner will likely be able to deliver MCOM. If, on the other hand, you have a more complex omnichannel project, you may want to engage a specialist partner. So quite often what we have now is a scenario where we have multiple partners involved on complex projects. So an example of this is Universal Music Group. So here you can see on this slide that Magento Commerce are providing the front end, but we also have Redbox providing the order management integration and Section IO on infrastructure. So they all bring their specialist talents to this large complex project. So now just to get into a bit more of the detail of the Universal project, I'm going to invite a couple of people to join us on stage. So we have John T., the founder of Redbox, and Arnie Doyle, e-commerce consultant who's been leading the UMG project. So this is Arnie, who's been running the UMG project on behalf of Redbox, and John T., who's the founder of Redbox. So starting with you, Arnie, how have you found the project? How have you found the MCOM as a fit for the requirements of UMG?
It's a really good fit for UMG. It's probably it's absolutely necessary for their vision, their roadmap, which is thousands of sites, thousands of Magento sites, and they have some pretty strong sort of aggregation needs in terms of both reporting, fulfillment, and customer service. So having essentially all of those orders funneling into MCOM is definitely the right strategy, for sure. I guess the other fit aspect is just time to market. You know, they can spin up a new Magento MCOM integration in, you know, well, out of the box basically, just by installing the modules and doing the right setup and everything. So I think in terms of a conceptual fit, it's great. It's good. Very good. Yeah.
Great. So you're confident this is the right platform for this project?
Yeah, definitely feature-wise as well. Certainly with the, I guess the nature of their business is they're going to have very high volumes, bursting volumes. So I think in terms of handling high traffic of orders, high volumes of orders, it's good. And also the different fulfillment channels they have, whether it's digital products, vinyl, merchandise, it's all needed. All the features of MCOM are needed in that respect. So it's good.
Okay.
I think context though, the key thing with, I mean, obviously we were all involved, but from a product selection perspective, as UMG roll this roadmap out globally, as Michael referred to earlier, that we're talking about 1,200 websites globally, servicing physical products, digital products in terms of downloads, and from a vast array of different sources. So, to Arnie's point, where effectively the roadmap sees MCOM sits in the middle of that and does all that orchestration. So, there are the guys at Magento are spinning up sites left, right and centre for an album launch or a song launch or what have you. And obviously the music industry these days is so heavily reliant on that merchandising side of things, it's becoming more and more critical to sell those bundles or sell those special offers. So to Arnie's point, you'll see massive spikes in traffic and they'll sell through volumes very, very rapidly. So whether it be pre-orders, back orders, or physical inventory that already exists, there had to be something in the middle that was going to capture and orchestrate all of those orders, and MCOM was really a critical part in the overall framework.
Yeah.
Great. Do you want to move forward a bit so you're not getting blinded by the
projector? Yeah. There we go. That's better.
So what's the developer experience been like for you?
It's good. As I said, it works out of the box, so it's just to install, there's a base set of modules that come from MCOM. You put them in your composer and off you go. Set up a bit of config and you're up and running. I think certainly on the SaaS side, the platform side, everything's super stable, which helps. There's a good staging environment, and certainly production works very, very smoothly from a stability, lack of errors point of view. It's good. On the developer side, you've also got the flexibility to make decent customizations to the modules themselves through the new Magento 2, or not the new, but the Magento 2 architecture and framework. And I think the real sort of benefit from a developer point of view would be the ability to rapidly spin up or create new modules for different fulfillment channels as well. So you can, we've got, I think at the moment there's 3 or 4 that are either live or in process. So digital, which is a sort of REST API from 7 Digital. Physical, which is a sort of providing a web service endpoint for Arvato. And then a couple of others which are sort of hybrid, either CSVs or so on. And all of those are coming from MCOM's originated or MCOM originated messaging system, Service Bus. So I think from a developer's point of view, it's probably good in terms of quick, easy to get going with it, and then also flexible moving forward for customizations and so on. Yeah.
We should briefly point out that I know Andrew made the comment in the video about upgrading to Magento 2 as MCOM being a reason for that. MCOM is front-end agnostic. It can run with any front-end, any marketplace channels, etc. It's just that the experience of deploying is optimized for Magento 2. So you see a lot of the quick setup available from Magento 2.
Yeah. So I mean, we also have an integration with a legacy e-commerce system as well. So as you said, it's agnostic from that point of view. So
So you've not seen the SaaS nature of the product to be a hindrance for?
No, for this project, it's an advantage. It's a plus. I mean, if you think of the administration burden of spinning up multiple or managing hundreds or thousands of Magento sites, it's a plus for the customer for sure, for the client. Yeah.
Okay.
To have that administration burden off their hands, and also certainly the production we've seen. We launched a couple of weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago, and we've just had the serious fulfillment volumes, and it's handled that really well. So I think the SaaS aspect of it is definitely a plus for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's your experience been with support from Magento?
Oh, excellent. So, so basically, we've got you guys have got some really dedicated people on Slack there, Javi and Anton, who are sort of very, very responsive, and certainly if there's stuff that can't be handled immediately, they're on calls and with us and the client as well. So it's quite interactive, and yeah, it's good, very good.
Great.
Yeah.
So
certainly, system-wise, we haven't seen in production or staging, we haven't seen any major sort of continual errors, or it's very, very stable, I think, from that point of view. So a lot of the support is really about the nature of the orders coming through, or products being set up, or different features. Yeah. So they've been good with that.
Great. So John T, beyond UMG, what do you see as the MCOM strategy for Redbox?
Look, we're investing pretty heavily in the product and in the platform, primarily because the types of merchants and customers we're talking to, both in primary retail spaces, but also in manufacturing, customers going direct to consumer or B2B, B2C, are pretty much demanding it. Right? I think everyone in the room that's done a Magento implementation in the past, be it Magento 1 or 2, has known some of the, I guess, potential limitations, is really the way to say it, around the single node inventory and the work that had to go in to extend that to make it, you know, applicable in a true omnichannel environment. So, you know, MCOM is really starting to fill that gap, right? It's, you know, it's still a relatively new product, as we all know. It's not, you know, it's not hundreds of thousands of implementations, but, you know, being able to plug that in to fill effectively an unlimited, you know, inventory node situation, you know, internationally and you know, through all the various iterations and combinations you might have, really starts to answer a big question. And, you know, as we invest more and more in the, you know, the connection between, you know, Magento Digital Commerce, Magento Enterprise, and the MCOM product, it's getting tighter and tighter. So, you know, all of the scenarios around retail space of click and collect and fulfillment from store and endless aisle and things are, you know, much more of a reality, you know, almost a plug and play reality than they were, you know, 6 months, 12 months ago. I think, you know, anyone who's a partner in the room, we were all doing it, but we're all doing it different ways, and you know, that ultimately brings challenges and complications. We're seeing with the number of the MCOM projects we have on right now that, you know, that standardization and approach is letting us get to market quicker, but also meaning that the reliability and the accuracy of that information is much, much stronger. So, and it's letting us address much more complex use cases as well. So, yes, it's doing more than obviously just inventory management, but, you know, as we look at 2.2 with Magento shipping and we look at the, you know, the landscape that the MCOM integration or the MCOM effectively middleware provides, it opens up a whole plethora of conversation that wasn't a struggle before, but it was starting to reach the boundaries of Magento's core capability in the framework that is, you know, that is badged Magento or that the market sees as Magento. So, yeah, to answer the question, for us, it's becoming an absolute key part. I mean, greater than 50% of our opportunities at the moment have MCOM as part of them, either because the customer's requested some sort of order management capability, or we're putting it on the table as an answer to some of their, you know, medium to longer term roadmap questions. And it, you know, again, from a team perspective, it's starting to unify and solidify effectively the approach we're taking to get to market with, you know, more complex Magento implementations.
Great. If I was asked to ask either of you to pick out some, in terms of features, strengths of the product, and also conversely areas where you think we need to focus further improvement on, what would they be?
I think the whole service bus architecture is definitely a huge strength. It allows you to use it as a sort of as a component of a bigger system, which I guess is what we're doing with UMG. Certainly, the ability to, or just, I think the core features are really great strengths. The ability to have different sources, specify them by site, by channel, and do different sort of fulfillment, I guess, processes and routines per source is awesome. I think the user interface is pretty good. Certainly the order view is good. It's nice and easy to read. It's much better, I think, than what you see in MDC, and it's probably quicker and easy to use. I think probably strength-wise.
Yeah, well, probably the not being negative, but the challenge, probably the biggest thing for us, and again, as the product matures more and more, and we're slightly biased, right? We're a Magento partner, so we're implementing Magento, and yes, it's agnostic, but I guess the API coverage against the core Magento product is probably, I wouldn't say it's a weakness, it's probably the biggest area of focus that we'd like to see in terms of getting, you know, that huge range of feature and function out of MCOM and the ability for it to do things more closely matched to the feature and function, or the API coverage at least anyway, within Magento Enterprise MDC. You know, there's so much option in there from again, not just a retail perspective, but a, you know, B2B and more broader, you know, B2C direct to consumer requirements. There's a huge opportunity in there, and you know, our view and part of our investment in the product is very much around trying to bring those closer together, so we get a greater API coverage, and then you've got a real force to be reckoned with, we believe, between the two products.
Great. So as I mentioned earlier, we see on simpler projects that partners can deliver MCOM alongside MDC. With the more complex projects, there's a lot of specialist knowledge that comes to the fore there. So you're the first partner that's just taken the decision to establish a dedicated permanent MCOM team. What's your thinking behind that strategy?
It's really been driven by that demand I was talking about. So again, any of the partners in the room will know that Magento in the market has really transformed from a singular product in the last 12, 24 months to call it a framework, an ecosystem of products, whatever you want to call it. And that's driving a whole different range of requirements. And a lot of those we're seeing are, in the retail space, are people looking at what Omnichannel actually means and how they can get to market with a solution in store and online and all the traditional touch points. So MCOM at the right price point and indeed in terms of time to market and complexity fills a big gap that was missing, right? A big hole in our view. So it was a relatively natural step to then say, okay, let's, as we do with the Magento product, we have practice leads and we have people very focused on that. MCOM is a separate product, a separate skill set, separate disciplines, separate business knowledge that goes into implementing it well. So we wanted to make sure we invested properly in that, not just assuming it's just an extension to Magento. It is a separate product. Yes, they work closely together, and as I touched on before, we want to see them working even more closely together. But to do it properly, you've got to have the right people doing it. So we want both the customers that we're working with on the work or on the implementations, as well as the team internally, to understand there are different disciplines and different skill sets to implement a best-of-breed product or best-of-breed solution across both products. I guess in that respect, it's a relatively natural extension of how we set up and run our team. But it's making sure we're delivering the right outcome and able to engage with yourselves and the Magento team in the right way, more closely around the right type of conversations and the right technology. It's not just a modular and extension to Magento. It's a completely separate product. So that really is the backing behind it, and it's that customer demand that's driving that decision.
Great. So you're going to be heading up this dedicated MCOM team. What's your feelings about that?
Oh no, I'm excited. It's good. It's quite a fresh approach to integration. I think it's most of my stuff I've done for Redbox is integration work. So it's good to have a specific framework to work with. But certainly that time to market aspect is really good. I think we can deliver a lot of value to our customers. Having a decent sort of core competency in MCOM and get them up and running pretty quickly. I think with various fulfillment scenarios they have. So excited. Yeah.
And it's key. I mean, if you look at the work we've done with MCOM already and integrating with MDC, the similarity or common elements around, ultimately in the retail space at least anyway, around what people are trying to do with click and collect or deliver from store or just simply the store stock exposure is generally following a somewhat consistent model. So being able to take some of those Magento modules and replicate them across clients or expose those learnings, again, reduces that time to market, reduces that investment even further. So we're pretty positive about as the product matures and as the work that we do with it becomes more standardized, then again it will reduce that investment even further. So it's good.
Great. Well, it's been great working with you on UMG. I think the team at Magento have been really impressed by how Redbox find creative solutions to UMG's many and varied needs. There's been some times when we thought UMG requirements were going to require some core development, and you've found some great solutions with the existing products, found new ways of using the product that we hadn't thought of. So it's been a good learning experience for us.
Yeah. So I mean, having such an open sort of API and messaging system, it enables that sort of framework, that sort of system pretty easily. Yeah. So I mean, just a point on UMG, we're at the start of a longer term project, and we've got I think four or five sites live, and they'll roll out almost on a weekly basis kind of thing. So the fact that MCOM is stable and was able to handle the big volumes is very reassuring, and it means that we're going to get I guess economies of scale, I suppose, for all these new sites. I mean, the effort to roll out a new site sort of will get easier and easier from here on in. So yeah, it's quite an exciting project, I think. UMG, yeah.
Yeah, so UMG are looking to be able to get sites up and running in a matter of hours, aren't they? So that's had implications for MCOM, for MDC, and I know Magento and Section IO have also put in a lot of effort into making that vision come to life.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll get to a repeatable situation fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Cool. Great. So we're going to get Michael back up on stage, and we'll open it up to questions from anybody in the room. So feel free to direct questions at any of us. Bernie's going to walk around with a microphone. So feel free to ask anything.
There we go. Always the hardest one. Start first.
You keep mentioning multiple sites like 1,200 Magento. Sorry. You keep mentioning like 1,200 Magento sites. Are you talking a single Magento instance with 1,200 stores in it, or are these single Magento instances that somehow networked together to the back end?
For the UMG project specifically, can we be cheeky and direct the question at you, Brent? Says more. Brent is the founder of Magento, and it's actually been Brent's Magento team that have been looking at the number of instances versus. I know there was a lot of discussion between one instance per artist and one instance and different strategies. So, is that all right? Sorry.
Yeah. So the majority of the stores are going to be one instance per artist. They're going to mix some artists into multiple artist stores, but otherwise it's one instance per artist with one database per artist.
I don't know if everybody heard that. So mainly one instance per artist, but I guess some of the smaller artists might share one store and be like a marketplace for some of their growing fleggling artists.
Yeah, so the first store was Sound of Vinyl, which is a local artist.
Next question.
Yeah, I mean, so that scenario, MCOM is the link between all the stores, yeah. A hub kind of thing.
And that's a multi-brand use case, multi-artist, or we've seen the other use case. It's a variant of that is multi-geographies, whether it's the same brand. People will need MCOM's orchestration of all those orders across geographies, or if not, multiple brands or artists. So that's kind of like the engage everywhere, whether you're across brands, you're across geos. I'm filling time for the next person to raise their hand.
There's one over there.
There we go. There we go.
I was just wondering about the ERP side of things. So have you just integrated with SAP at the moment, or have you integrated with lots of different ERP systems?
So existing ERP integrations, we tend to send a lot of reporting data on the orders that our order management is processing. So that the ERP in place has a real-time view of what the e-commerce channel is doing and can use that for its supply chain processes and make sure it's got the right inventory in the right places. I think further down the line we'll have tighter ERP integrations and more ability to do available to promise based on the information about supply chain that we can get from an ERP system. So I think that's an area for future improvement. Do you have a specific use case in mind that?
No, I was just thinking generally, just with the work you've done at the moment. I'm not too familiar with the technology, so I was just wondering, how difficult was it from kind of, what was the communication like between the ERP system and the system?
So there's so the main one we've done is for physical merchandise products with Arvato, or just for the Universal Music scenario, and we're providing a web service that queues shipment messages coming out of MCOM, and so they'll treat them each shipment as one of their individual orders, and that's a BizTalk SAP stack they're acting as the web service client. So it's kind of on an a la carte basis at the moment. So we've got others which are CSVs, but the framework essentially enables you to, I guess, route by source your orders or your shipment requests to different sort of modules and systems. Yeah. So so web services, CSV, and REST APIs currently. Yep.
Yeah, we don't see, we're always going to work with an ERP, and like Mark mentioned, I'd love any feedback that are there certain scenarios or ERPs that we should be looking at, because the ERP is always going to be handling what they do best, the planning and the purchasing side of it, and there's always that tight integration with OMS that's required.
So currently it's order placement, order status updates, shipment notifications with tracking data, and stock updates. So, I guess it speaks to UMG. Not only do they have different front ends, but they also have different back ends as well, depending on geography and everything. So we have in the pipeline, we have about 12 that need to happen across or sort of globally, and that's not the complete list. But
Good morning, gentlemen. Is it common for people to use MCOM if they're using some dropship parties, and any use cases of that? So we see our growth essentially more or less being dropshipped from suppliers, and that way we can reduce our overheads. If that's the case, is it common for people to use MCOM as middleware almost to integrate stock levels with their third-party suppliers? Because for us, we feel we have a lot of low-hanging fruit if we can integrate with stock levels and reduce our refund rates as well.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, so at a fundamental level, MCOM's strength is having view of inventory, be able to be that central source of truth and sourcing logic across various locations of inventory. One common use of where you have inventory all over the place, whether it be merchants, large or small, is drop shippers. So that's a core piece of capability to MCOM will be that middleware. And in simple use cases where there's a few drop shippers, it can integrate directly to those drop shippers. When we see folks that have many drop shippers of various sizes and complexities, we'll partner with a dropship management solution like a Logic Broker, who will manage kind of that vendor management side of the house. And order management will know where the inventory is, do the sourcing, and know where their inventory is across all of those drop shippers. But a solution like a Logic Broker will be the communication method, know how to communicate to the various drop shippers and manage SLAs and things like that. So that's a good common use case.
Have you implemented that before?
We have not yet implemented a dropship third-party solution yet, but it's actively being solutioned right now for some
that would
merchants.
be for a kind of a partner that we can go to market with. We do have Bentley Leathers that have just gone live recently with their existing dropship provider integrated to us. Dropship providers can be quite sticky based on the integrations on the other side to the providers. So we can connect to an existing dropship provider just the same way as we would connect to a network of warehouses and do the sourcing logic across those providers.
Yeah, from the UMG point of view as well, these warehouses that we're connecting to are essentially dropship, basically. Yeah, I mean they stock the product, they send it independently and everything. They just don't supply the product, but the framework supports. It doesn't have to be your internal ERP system. It supports external APIs and everything. So, yeah.
Jack Prince to come.
Jack Prince, for example, yeah, exactly, which is a personalisation, T-shirt personalisation, I think.
Yeah.
And poster personalisation.
So the standard integration for any fulfillment piece, whether it be drop shippers or warehouses, is kind of a standard integration pattern.
Yeah. Yeah, on the product side, it would be the product management side. I mean, if you're expecting the dropshippers or suppliers to manage products through MCOM, they would need it to manage through Magento, but the back-end order management stuff is all all covered, basically, yeah.
Well done. Anybody else? Going once? Oh, there's one.
Hi there. What type of recovery logic did you have to implement with that type of project where you've got 1,200 sites, lots of orders coming through, failed communications or operational handling for things like failed messages or malformed messages or just orders which haven't routed properly?
Yeah, okay. So 1,200 is the roadmap. So the logic, yeah, so there's like 4 now, right? And there's sort of burstable sales. So in terms of recovery, essentially you've got, I would say, persistent queues on both the MCOM sort of service, or Magento and MCOM are both servers and clients in a message exchange.
Yeah.
And both of them have, I would say, persistent retryable queues. So on the Magento side, it's a table with some retry logic on the cron. On the MCOM side, it's a bit more sophisticated. I think it's a RabbitMQ based queue, and the messages are transferred to subscribers that register with MCOM. So in terms of recovery, just trying to think of a scenario. You've got, I guess, guaranteed order placement with MCOM from Magento, not just through status, but through timestamps, basically. And then on the MCOM side, if you post to MCOM and get a 200 back, for example, it's guaranteed to be in the queue, and then the internal queue takes over. And that's so I'm not sure. I can't speak to what actually happens after the order gets to MCOM, but I think the contract really is a 200 response code to back to Magento. Yeah. So there's also IDs. I think so if you retry something that's already received, it will, and it's the same message, it will ignore it basically. So yeah.
We have error queues as well for if an order is received that we can't fully interpret. Maybe it's got a SKU in it that's not in the catalogue that we have or something like that. It gets held in an error queue, so you can resolve whatever the
get routed off separately, so let's say customer can pick that up and go through, or somebody else within the business.
Yeah. Typically, some administrator on the back end will look at those error messages, resolve the problem, and replay those orders in the error.
So, what were the biggest technical challenges from implementing MCOM that you came across?
Okay, so we did the project as it was moving from a AMQP-based communication scenario to the service bus scenario. So the service bus is just HTTP exchanging JSON stuff, and I mean that was a challenge just to change. But in terms of actually stuff not working, I think the main challenge was more around the order composition. UMG had still have some specific requirements around how bundles need to be split out. That doesn't necessarily reflect exactly how Magento offers bundles to be shipped separately, for example. So we had some sort of custom work to do to split those out to match in the order placement message to match how the business requirements on the UMG side, and then also the way that MCOM handles bundles on their side. I mean, I'm not sure if you want to talk briefly about the bundle logic, not UMG, but the standard MCOM bundle logic, in terms of keeping stuff together from different warehouses.
Something.
That was the biggest challenge. It was more sort of business logic.
Business logic driven.
Splitting it, and then selling it off to, let's say, allocate.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's work in progress to make MCOM the perfect fit for Magento 2. So sometimes we have the concept, but it's not quite the same way that NDC thinks about the concept. So it's work in progress to make sure that we're that perfect match in those kind of bundle scenarios or other scenarios.
Yeah, that was it. So just basically identifying the order item and having MCOM see it as a separate line item that can be shipped separately from the warehouse when it's not necessarily, when it's still part of a bundle in Magento. So,
Is that through pseudo messaging or something else like that?
well, no, we did a plugin to sort of to manipulate the order send or the create order message to MCOM to match what they would expect in a situation like that. So I think the challenge of that was really sort of was really working out what the logic should be and getting it running. But all the messaging is already built in, like the service bus stuff sort of goes on the top of, I think, the AMQP framework that Magento has. So there's not a lot of custom. There's barely any custom work you need to do in that area. So that was kind of all covered already. Quite good. Yeah.
Cool. Slowly dying.
Any other? I know we're up against, got 5 more minutes maybe. Any other questions? I know we kept you in here quite a bit. So another question? Sure. We'll stay here as long as we need to.
You said MCOM is still work in progress. To what extent is it at the heart of what Magento is looking to invest in? So, a year ago it was Magento Cloud, now it's MCOM. To what extent will Magento devote, if you like, its resources to absolutely invest and future-proof and continue to R&D MCOM, as opposed to, next year, okay, we've done MCOM to an acceptable level, now we'll invest in something new that we can get more customers in, as opposed to probably, concentrating on quality rather than quantity.
So, I mean, I think hopefully you'll hear that answer from Mark Lavelle and Jason Woosley today and tomorrow in terms of where our overarching investment and strategy is. I think certainly we've got to do both. We've got to improve our quality and we've got to do all those right things. But as Jaunty, I think, elaborated, the opportunity there that we're hearing from our merchants and the demand to drive these solutions is driving our we'll continue to invest in this solution. We see a lot of our merchants needing these capabilities. We want to work with our ecosystem to provide a full set of capabilities, not just the web store. So we're going to continue to bring those solutions while we're also improving each product inside our portfolio to the best of ability. So it's, I guess the answer is both, but hopefully you'll hear that from Mark and Jason in the next couple of days.
So I think the other, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's also a separate development team, right? So
correct.
It's effectively 2 separate product teams, and from our perspective, working with the team in Barcelona, so where Mark and the team are based from MCOM perspective, it's a completely separate engagement than working with the team on the MDC side. So
yeah. And MCOM's mature as well. I mean, it's a mature product that is, how to explain it, is integrated into Magento. So there's 2 streams of work there. There's people working on the core MCOM product, and then there's the sort of the integration aspects to get the 2 to work really tightly together, I guess. So
yeah.
I think that's actually from a SI point of view as well. That's something that was clear. I mean, sometimes we all have issues with Magento occasionally, but sort of certainly the stability and predictability of MCOM was pretty good, pretty fresh. So yeah.
So to the point, so the product was developed out of our Barcelona location. Even though we brought this under the Magento brand and brought it to market globally 18 months ago, it had been in the market for a year or 2 before that. So it wasn't certainly from a scratch solution. We were working with a lot of good capabilities. We brought some of these omnichannel things to the product, but it's got some maturity as it relates to being in a market 3-4 years.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
5 minutes.
Okay, I think that's it. Thank you for your time. Hope you enjoyed it. Enjoy the rest of the show.